Yeah, they're everything. So I'm gonna start before I talk about the sales calls in itself. I'm actually gonna talk about selling in the DMs because I've
Nice.
seen it a lot in the space. I actually done it myself a lot. I mean, I generated uh, about seven figures, or if not seven figures, very close to it, selling in the DMs. And I'll say this: it is a much longer process. It is a lot more work than they actually make it seem so because you do need a very, very strong follow-up system set up. I mean, like content, copies. I mean, don't get me started into it. So, when you're first initially sending out, messages, it's yes, it is to book a call and then get them to the call. Now, once you have them in the call, it is very, very, very important. Um, to stay true to the nature of the call, stay on task, right? It is a business conversation, right? So it's important to keep it as that because otherwise you're going to start mixing between, the two, whether coaching and selling, and the prospect is going to get confused. And if they're confused, they're going to say no,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's important to always establish the fact that it is a sales call and have the sales call because it's the only way that you're going to consistently bring in revenue to your business,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
If you're just out here, doing the free coaching and this and that, or like trying to mask the call as something that it's not, you're gonna have a very, very, very tough time. Which is why I mean it's called the importance of the sales call, right?
That's true. Very true. Yeah. It's like how difficult do you want these sales calls to be? Do you want to be as disingenuous as possible, or do you want to be someone that can build a connection in hopes of later down the road something happening? Because I've been on plenty of calls that happen that way. I remember even sending a message to someone and I got a response like early or late last year. The message that I sent out was from 2019. It's now 2023, right? So it's like, oh, I just saw this. Yeah, I'd love to chat. I'm like, well, all right then, let's do this. So kind of funny how like things just start to snowball in a way too. So it is very important, setting that that I guess vibe first and foremost, right? So love
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
absolutely. So let me talk a little bit more about like, also structuring the sales call itself, because I know we talked about a little bit structuring the sales process,
Yeah.
right? But now it's the sales call. So, it depends whether you're doing intentionally a two call close, as we call it in the online space, which is one call is 15 minutes discovery, if you will, 15, 30 minutes. And then the next call is kind of like, follow up, and you also you go with the proposal, things of that nature, right? And then you have what I'm seeing a lot in the space now, which is a one call close, which means that in this 45-minute to 1 hour long call, you're going through the entire discovery process to closing process. Now, which one is good for you? It really depends on your offer and what you're doing, right? Um, so I'm not going to get into that because there's a lot of variables.
Different, yeah,
Um,
a lot of variables for sure. Yeah.
but overall, in every call, you got to make sure that you're covering, like obviously establishing your authority. That's the first thing, right? They got to know that you are the expert. It doesn't mean that you know everything, but you are the in-house expert, and you got to almost treat it like when you go to the doctor, right? You're doing a routine checkup. Although the doctor probably knows the answers to the question that they're asking, they're still asking in a curious way in case something changed. So you got to ask the questions like it's the first time you're asking that question to this person, and the first time you're ever asking the question. Period.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. Yeah.
So you got to be extremely curious when you're in that discovery phase of the call.
Yeah.
Then this is where you kind of like make potentially the pivot, whether it is more emotional driven call, right?
Mhm.
Because they're here yet to have a business problem, but really with their big trigger, it's hey, I'm emotionally attached to this goal or problem, or it's hey, it's a true hey business, number. I need to solve this. It's not necessarily because it's causing a lot of emotional stuff on me, but it's more so because I just genuinely need to solve this business issue,
Right.
right? And you
Yeah.
can kind of just pick up on that based on how the conversation is going.
Yeah. No, definitely. There's in your experience, are the emotional buyers or the logical buyers easier to kind of get on the other side of the fence and make the sale?
Yeah, great question. They're the same.
Yeah.
It depends on you,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
So, because if you try to sound an emotional person with logic, which is why I said you got to be able to determine who's who, you're
Yeah.
not going to have a good time. It doesn't matter how great of a closer you are, you're not going to close them. If
Yeah.
you're but if you're closing them with logic, right? Like, yes, of course, you're going to make the sale. So you just got to be prepared to pull whatever tool out of your tool belt that you need in order to make the sale.
Yeah, definitely. I was because every time someone talks to me about landing pages, I'm like, great, like all this stuff below everything else, the video, that's all for those analytical, logical people. They just want to study a little bit more. They want to get all the fine print out of the way, all the specs and the pros and cons of it. They want to know everything. This is why this long landing page exists. But for like the emotional ones that just want the answers now, is this going to solve my problem because my problem sucks? I'm going to watch this, and if it sounds right about 3 minutes in, I'm in. Let's book a call, right? So I feel like they're faster um, to get on the call, but I would imagine uh, that emotional buyers would be harder to sell. Um, but I guess that makes a lot more sense, is being able to strongly identify which conversation you're about to have, a more analytical one or more of an emotional one. So that's probably one of the pieces that I was missing. So that's awesome, dude. That was super helpful. Um, yeah, what else you got? I love these pro tips. What else? Keep going.
Yeah,
These are great.
absolutely. Which, by the way, it's a reason why it's important to have a call because you can't see these cues in so much or see them as quick, if you will, in a DM or if you're selling through like Messenger, whatever it may be, even if you're voicing back and forth,
Right.
right? Because like an emotional person, like when you hit certain pain points, like you literally see their body language change, right? Their tonality is going to change, their face expression is going to change, right? That logic person is probably going to ask, certain questions, right? And you'll literally see them thinking they'll go like, right? But
Yeah.
you can't see that pause in the DMs, right? So that's what's important to have the sales calls. Um,
Yeah.
so after you have discovered, which path you're going to take, whether it's emotional or logical, then now you just go down that path, right? And make sure that your pitch, right, or if you will, your offer, your presentation, right, when you're doing maybe a little bit more of talking during the call, right, you're using again uh, what resonates the most with them. So you heard their problem, right, and fast forward pace it. So now you're talking as if you have made that solution already for them. It's like this is what it will look like when you're in the program and so on and so forth. Because probably at this point of the conversation, if they haven't hung up on you, right, they like you,
Yeah.
right, they're sold on you as a person, as a brand. Now this just got to be sold on as a solution, and the only way to do that is by you helping them envision themselves with this, the solution being the problem being solved.
Yeah.
Um, and then last step, of course, in the call in itself, whether again you're doing this in the second call or that I called it right then and there, is of course, closing, which is collecting, credit card information, submitting payment, whatever that looks like, and of course, signing of agreement. You
Yeah.
know, I always like to say I don't count the sale until it's closed, and what I mean close, I mean both things: agreement and payment process, both things, not one or the other,
Yeah.
but
We
both.
gotta have both. Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you so when you're on, I'm assuming you do Zoom calls for your sales, right? As much as possible,
Yes.
probably. So when you are, you know, you hit the point where they verbally committed, yes, let's move forward. Awesome. Um, are you waiting for them right then and there to sign that contract via email? Do you drop it in the Zoom chat? How do you navigate that? And then how do you also, let's say for the newbies, part two, we'll go back to the first one in a second, but part two is when you're collecting payments. Think back to the first time you ever collected payments, right? How was that process for you? I think a lot of people that are going to be watching this are going to be brand new to collecting payments. So my
Yeah.
first thing is always like, man, just write down the card number and say they'll get a receipt later in about an hour and process it after. Or so you obviously become a pro at that now, but think back as to younger Darren closing his first deal and then now the more seasoned salesperson. What did that look like and how did that work out? So question one, back to the contract. How do you send that? What do you wait for them, or what does it look like?
Yeah, so I mean, here I'll give you my exact verbiage when I'm like closing. Cool. So I mean, since it looks like all is left to do is just process the agreement. By the way, I never say contract because that scares the
Yeah,
crap out of people.
true,
um,
true.
so I always say agreement. So yeah, so since that's all pretty much we have left to take care of, what I'm gonna do right now. I'm gonna process the investment, and I'm also gonna send you over the agreement. So I'm gonna send them the agreement. Right now, it's just like at this point, I'm probably not sharing my screen anymore. So I'm just pulling that up, whether it's PandaDoc, DocuSign, whatever that looks like, and I send that over to them.
Yeah.
And I literally tell them, so yeah, as that's loading up, getting to you on your end, I'm gonna start again processing the investment and getting ready to onboard you. So is that gonna be like a Visa, MasterCard, or one of the shiny gold MX cards? And I usually have a chuckle at that.
You got the black Amex card or what? Let's
Right. And then they usually tell me like it really doesn't matter what card because we take all cards. I just want them to physically take it out and start doing that. And I collect the payment right then and there on the call, right? And as I was like, cool. So like, what's so same name, great, perfect. So what's the numbers in the front? Cool. What's it cool? The magic digits in the back, so on and so forth. They tell me all that good stuff. Then I process the payment right there on the call. And I'm like, hey, by the way, it looks like the agreement it should hit your inbox. Take a quick glance at it. It pretty much just covers everything that I went over, but in like you know, low year terms, and they usually laugh. um, so if you want to take a quick glance, I can hang out here for another, and that's just like look at, much time I have, another like 5-10 minutes. Um, and then that's pretty much, the process. The reason why I do it that way, like right on the call, is because, and this has happened to me. It's not because I don't want to pay; it's because I literally forget to pay,
right.
right? Or to sign the agreement or something. Like, I mean, so many times that I've been on the phone, it's like, oh yeah, I'll take care of that later, and the moment I hang up, I forget. Like it's
Yeah.
just out of mind, and then I'll remember like when I'm laying down in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta do this.
Yep.
um,
I've done the same thing
so
with like when I'm outsourcing a job that I really need to get done. I'm like, man, I wonder how that progress is going. Oh, I forgot to submit the payment for it. They didn't even get started yet. It's on the same way, man. It's easy to get lost in the day. Um, what do you okay, so we got the contract signed over and the investment has been charged. What do you use, by the way, for payment processing?
yeah, so we use Stripe because it's very easy to create invoices,
Nice.
right? And then we use PandaDoc because you can put the invoice in there in case like you're like say like they're on which I don't recommend, but like say like they're traveling, and they can't literally process that's the payment right then and there and sign an agreement. With PandaDoc, there's a feature that you can set it up, and the moment that they sign it takes them to the next page, which is process payment.
Okay, gotcha. Nice, man. So horror stories. Tell me what your first processing was like. I'm sure that probably stuck with you at some point. What did that look like, man?
Yeah,
Darren, what that first transaction look like?
yeah. So first, I was shocked.
Sure, yeah.
uh,
Behind the
I was
scenes.
like, wait.
Yeah.
He's like, he said yes. Maybe can I turn off my camera real quick?
Girl jumping up and down, like, mom, mom.
No, literally. So, so yeah, and I was like, I kept my cool, I'll be honest, but like inside, like my emotions were like all over the place. I was like excited, nervous. I blanked. I'm like, what's the Stripe link again? How do I make the copy of the Panda doc? Like literally, it was a good pause. So I was like, yeah. So I butchered, which is why it's so good to practice, like your clothes, right? I was like, yes. He's like, yeah, let's do this thing. I'm like, wait, you just said yes.
You know what?
um,
Hold on one second. I haven't practiced for the yeses yet. Hold on.
and I'm so used to the no's, right?
Yeah.
So right, I mean, right after it was probably the longest like 3 seconds of my life. Um, and yeah, I was
Nice.
like, okay, cool. So let me, just go ahead and grab the Stripe link, right? So I can, get that set up for you. And I shouldn't have said like, by the way, they don't know what you're supposed to say or anything like that. So like, if you mess up, just go with it, right? And I literally said, like, when I look back at the recording, I'm like, I really said that. I said, yeah, let me grab the Stripe link. And let me grab the agreement and send that over to you.
Yeah.
So I sent over the agreement, opened up Stripe link, like Stripe link. I can't even speak now. And yeah, I like butchered like 5 times. I read back his credit card number like 5 times, because I kept butchering it. And I mean, he was, they're cool with it at this point. They're sold, they're good to go, right? And that was the first time I ever, collected, cash, and it was also it was a pay in full too. So, yeah, it was
Uh,
great. But
what
at
was
the
the
same
total
time, it
amount?
was a lot. Yeah, so that was 10K.
10. Oh man, no wonder why you're jumping for joy. That was a 10K investment.
Yeah, 10K pay in full.
Yeah, so
So
that's awesome, dude. That's I mean, this is kind of like, throwing, some topics at you out of nowhere, but like, did that really help your sales mindset, knowing that, man, people do have money to spend, people do want what I have to offer? Did that change anything right then and there?
yeah, so that. So I know the numbers, right? Like that's I am a numbers guy. I'm also very emotional. I like to say I'm right in the middle, right? But you know, you understand that, like you said earlier, yeah, sales is a numbers game,
Yeah.
right? So I never get too hung up on it for too long. Right. So that was, I want to say, on that offer, it was my third call on that offer.
Okay.
And I was like, I mean, based on their closing percentages and the KPIs that they gave me, they're closing at a 15% rate. I had 3 calls, I closed one. So I'm closing at a 33. I'm like, dude.
Yeah. I'm already
Right.
on top. Yeah.
Now, what really did pivot for me though was that their averages was also like, it wasn't, paying fulls. It was just collecting about, I want to say 25% up front and then breaking down the rest into payments.
Yeah.
Right. So that I was like, wow, what can the question that I asked myself after I came down from emotional high, two questions is like, one, how can I, stay at a 33%? Although I have a very, 3 calls as samples, right? How can I stay at a, 33% closing? And then two, how can I stay at, closing with, paying fulls as much as possible?
Right.
Right. Because that really was, those two questions is what really changed my mindset of their KPIs and what they gave me, which was, you know, cash collector 2,500, and you'll sell one, and let's just round it up to two out of 10 people that you talk to. Right.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, it's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But I was like, wow, if I did this on my third call and I can like just evaluate what I did and could continue to replicate it, dude, I'm gonna be golden.
Yeah, yeah, totally, man.
So